Hey guys! So I recently completed Challenge Daytona, and this was after a 2-year hiatus from triathlon events, and let me tell you, this was the event to come back for. The main reason I picked this event was because it's not too far from where I live, and also because the swim takes place in a lake in the middle of Daytona Speedway. So a quick recap on what this race was like. It took place in Daytona Beach, Florida on the weekend of December 4 through 6, and there was a huge pro turnout due to the $1 million prize purse offered. Gustav Iden took first place for the men, and Paula Finlay took first place for the women for the second year in a row. It was a pretty spectacular event. Meanwhile, in the non-pro circuit, there was me. I joined the age grouper triathlon for the sprint version, and this included a 0.5-mile swim, a 20-kilometer bike ride, and a 5K run. I was really excited to swim in a lake this time around instead of an ocean. The last time I did a triathlon, it was in the Atlantic Ocean, and the waves were intense. So a lake, by comparison, a lot calmer, a lot easier to get back into triathlon. Race day morning started bright and early. Well, it was actually still pretty dark and early. I got to the race at about 6 a.m. and had a few minutes to lay out my gear and also a few minutes to visit the main attraction, the porta potty line. It took about 20 minutes out of my morning, but trust me, it was well worth it. You want to be ready before you start these kinds of races. The starting gun went off at 7 a.m. and swimmers placed themselves into corrals based on their estimated finish time. Now, the best corral to be in was the under 10 minutes category, and the worst one was in the 26 minutes or more category, and I dutifully placed myself in that last corral as a self-proclaimed non-swimmer. And I was really glad I did. It's better to pick a later corral and then pass a few people than to be trampled by all the fast swimmers. And it turns out that water was cold. They were predicting that it would be between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm not sure what the actual temperature was on race day, but for someone who's used to warm water and warm temperatures in Florida, it was a lot to get used to. The minute I stuck my face in the water, I knew it was going to be a challenge breathing, so I quickly flipped over to the backstroke and did that for the entire 0.5-mile race. Even though I know that backstroke is probably less efficient than other strokes, I felt that it was good for me because it enabled me to just relax, enjoy the swim, and then perform strong on the bike and the run. No regrets on that at all. It was a little bit harder to sight. I kept having to flip over onto my front to be able to see the buoys and see where I was. But overall, I think for my level of swimming, it was a worth it sort of strategy just to complete the swim. Now here's the good news though. I predicted I would finish the swim in about 30 minutes, but actually it took me about 26 minutes. So that's a bit of an improvement over expected. Now this was my first race wearing a wetsuit, and I had only used the wetsuit in practice twice before the actual race. And on race day morning, I forgot to apply the body glide before putting on the wetsuit, unfortunately. This is supposed to make the wetsuit easier to put on and off, and I did apply some after I put on the wetsuit, but I don't know if it really helped that much. During transition 1, I had a difficult time pulling the wetsuit off past my ankles. And I think if I were able to perfect this move in the next race, I could save myself at least 3 minutes, if not 4. So if you're running your next race soon, don't forget to get something to be able to get that wetsuit off, whether it's body glide or baby oil. I also hear works very well. Other than that, my transition to the bike portion of the course went very well. In the sprint portion, we did 3 laps around the track and then 1 lap around part of the outside of Daytona Speedway. I had heard reports of people in previous years getting a little off track due to confusing signage outside of the main track, and so I was very diligent to pay attention to those signs and also to kind of memorize the course map ahead of time. Going into this race, I thought that my speed would be about 15 miles per hour, but I kept checking my Garmin throughout the race, and I realized that I actually had energy to perform a little bit better. And so I pushed myself and got about 16 miles per hour on average for the bike ride. And this is one of the reasons why races are so awesome. Sometimes you feel a little better and you have that friendly competition next to you, pushing you to try harder and dig deeper. Then it was time for transition 2, and literally all I had to do for that transition was swivel my race number from the back of my body to the front. I didn't use bike shoes for this race. I just used normal running shoes, and so even that didn't have to change. But I still hung out for a few more seconds in transition 2, thinking, I know I'm forgetting something. I know there's something else I'm supposed to bring on this run. But no, there wasn't. I think I might have brought my water bottle along so that I didn't have to use the provided water. But that's about it. It was a very simple transition, and I should have moved through it quicker. Now, the run portion was definitely a mind over matter type of event. I had done some brick workouts during training, doing a bike and then a run right after, but usually I would do that on an indoor bike trainer and then switching to a treadmill. I hadn't done a lot of being on an actual bike and switching to an actual run outside, and let me tell you, it feels different. I had done a race before, and so I knew that this would happen, but it was definitely something that I had to just psychologically say, okay, keep moving even though your legs feel like jelly. I also knew that it would be a little hard to know how fast I was going because my legs felt so funny. So I kept checking my Garmin to see how I was doing and trying to maintain at least a pace of a 10-minute mile. Now, the run consisted of a single lap around the track and a little bit more running in the infield to make up that final bit of those 3 miles or 5K. I developed a side stitch or two partway through the run, and because of that, I didn't want to push myself too hard. But at about mile 2, I realized that it wasn't getting any worse, and so I decided to push just a little bit harder and aim for a 9-minute 30-second average mile pace rather than a 10-minute mile. And that actually worked. I was able to make up a little bit of time in the end and finish very strong. Now, coming into the finish line was the coolest and also the silliest part, because as I was going down that final red carpet and I could see the finish line ahead of me, I could see the timer, and I thought, wow, it's actually at 1 hour and 59 minutes. If I run really, really fast, I can finish this triathlon in 2 hours even. So I sped up, and when I looked at my Garmin later, it said that my max speed was over 14 miles per hour, which is kind of crazy for me. But I did. I finished in under 2 hours. Only to find out later that, and I should have known this, I started much after the starting gun went off because I was in that last swim corral. So my actual time was about 1 hour and 49 minutes. I started about 10 minutes later than some other people. So there was really no need to rush, and I actually felt kind of tricked into performing my best. So I'm glad I had that extra incentive in the end just to push a little harder because, hey, it's fun to finish strong. It's also weird because if you can sprint that hard in the end, you realize, wow, I could have been going a little bit harder during the actual race itself. But hey, at least I had those last few moments of going hard for the finish, and it probably made for a good photo. As I start to think about New Year's resolutions for the coming year, I think some of my resolutions are going to revolve around swimming, biking, and running faster. And that seems rather obvious for someone who wants to pursue triathlon, but I honestly think that some of this is psychological, finding some kind of mind trick to convince myself that I really am capable of going just a little bit faster. Let me know in the comments below if you have any kind of games or tricks you play with yourself in order to push just a little bit harder, especially if you realize after playing those tricks that you actually had that capacity all along. I'd really like to know as we move into the new year and some great resolutions. So that's it for my latest triathlon. I'm already looking at what race will be next. I'm probably going to aim for one in either April or May of next year, giving myself a little bit more time to get used to swimming. I know that there's nothing like scheduling a race far out in advance to convince yourself to try a little bit harder in your workouts and have a lot more focus. So if you're like me and you want a goal to aim for in the new year, go ahead and pick out your next race and sign up for it right now, before the new year. Once you've paid the fee, it's a little bit harder to back out on a race. So hey guys, hit that like button down below and also subscribe for more tips and tools on how to improve your personal best every day. Bye guys.